Hi everyone, I'm here with Dr. Jeffrey Ebin from the USA, Houston, right? You live in Houston.
Correct. Yeah, Houston,
Yeah.
Texas.
So Jeff is a great guy. He's a medical doctor who also creates assistive technology. And today we're going to talk to him about the kind of work he does and where he got his ideas from and why he got interested in this field. So Jeff, thanks for being here. And thanks for joining our group. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this area.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I hope our conversation today will be useful and helpful for anyone watching. I work in the emergency room during the day, and then I guess at nighttime, so to speak, what I do is build assistive technology. So work mostly with quadriplegics, but really just anyone with severe disabilities. And usually one-on-one. What you'll find in this field is it's very specialized. Everyone has a bit of a different injury. So meet someone, find out what they want and how we can make it happen, and try to build it for them.
Right. So we had a look at your video before that we compiled of all your videos, showing the gadgets that you've been building over the months and years. Very cool. Very, very cool. I'd like to understand, with you're a medical doctor, but you obviously have a technical capability and background. Have you studied engineering or did you just teach yourself?
Self-taught. I learned through YouTube. I guess it really started in medical school. I lived in the Caribbean and was looking for a hobby. Would wake up and spearfish and go on hiking, but needed something else. So I found these do-it-yourself videos on YouTube about like building bubble machines, cotton candy machines, vacuum cleaners out of soda cans, and all this stuff. So I got very interested in it and used to build those. Got my first microcontroller around 2 years ago in Arduino, and since then it's kind of picked off. It I guess it felt kind of naturally, and I really enjoy it.
Very impressive. So before you became a doctor, before you started getting interested in medicine, you were already tinkering?
No, not so much. Not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a little bit, as a kid building random stuff, but certainly nothing on this level.
Right.
I think that I learned what a capacitor or resistor was maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. So,
right. That's cool. And
yeah.
what made you want to become a doctor to begin with?
It was a change of pace. I was in 2014 in the Israeli army and had just gotten out of a war. And someone told me that I could go to the Caribbean and study medicine on a little island there. It sounded really good.
Which
So
island?
it was never I want to be a doctor. This is my lifelong career. It was more of like a great change of scenery.
And it wasn't like have you got doctors in the family?
Yeah, I actually do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So and then what's the link to people with disability? What made you interested in that field or helping people?
Yeah, great question. It's something that particularly when I start working with someone the first time, I'll explain to them, yeah, we can, probably make this device and they'll ask how much it costs. And I don't charge money. This is on the house. I enjoy doing this. And then I'll get this look from them followed by that question. Like, do you have a quadriplegic in your family?
Yeah.
Or, what's the connection? The truth is I have no connection.
Right.
I don't have any, certainly now close friends that I've been working with who are quads, but starting off, it was just noticing that the field is so far behind. There's so much more we can be doing. And it just, kind of drives me crazy that these are people who need help the most and we can help them the most, but it's just not really being done. So I guess everyone has their own little thing that they focus on. And so this was the field that I chose.
But did you like in your medical studies, did you come across people with quadriplegia and then think what
Yeah,
can
I did.
do
I
for them? Is that how
remember
it worked?
the first quadriplegic I met, third year of medical school. He was a hospital patient, and he wasn't able to call the nurses. Actually, just like last week, made a new video where I created like a headset for them to call nurses for you like blow into a straw. But this guy wasn't able to contact the nurses. I remember I went home and I brought my walkie-talkies and I like taped it closed so it's always on talk, and I like set one up next to his bed, one next to the nurse's station. I was so excited, and like when I came in the next day though, he was already discharged, like he had left the hospital. But that was probably the first quad that I met in person, and maybe the first time that I appreciated, like, this is crazy. How do you have someone in a hospital who can't get in touch with nurses? And,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely a
That's
first experience, a meaningful one.
Yeah, right. So it wasn't even like you weren't even trying to invent something from scratch. You were like trying to find a solution to an obvious problem. And for you, it was
Yeah,
the walkie-talkies. And then
yeah.
it kind
For
of
me, it's
built
always
from
been
there.
like that. It's never been about, let's be an inventor, let's, get patents and make money. It's just, I just like building stuff, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, necessity, huh? Necessity is the mother of invention. So you got there. So how long have you been doing this? How long have you been making stuff?
First real project was a facial sensor I built coming out of medical school, which is around a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So that's around the timeline I've been involved in this, and a lot of progress still to be made, and I'm still working on a lot of stuff. So, I love this field. It's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the first time we found out about you was, our friend Peter Ford, who's the founder of Controlbionics, mentioned
Sure, yeah.
this great doctor in the US who's building stuff, and he sent me your videos, and he said, he'll introduce us. So that's how we started talking, and that was a few months ago, I guess. So we've been keeping track with your work. Of course, you went on a slight hiatus during the COVID times, when you started working on ventilators.
Yeah, that was unexpected, and well, I guess it was unexpected for everyone, but
Yeah.
certainly, being a doctor and engineering background, it fit really well when the world like needed ventilators and started helping different countries doing it. We got one of my designs got approved by the Canadian government, the Health Canada.
Wow.
So a lot of progress on there. And then like after that, once we realized the ventilators were okay there, pretty much immediately I returned to this work and started building these projects again. But yeah, several month hiatus.
So with the ventilators, you don't think in the end it didn't end up being such an emergency kind of do-it-yourself ventilator?
That's a good question. I mean, there are no regrets. Like in March, we were seeing videos of like Italian doctors who were choosing who lives and who dies, who gets a ventilator and who doesn't. That was really the feeling. I remember getting text messages from one of my colleagues, a doctor in Connecticut, saying that we're running out of ventilators in 2 days. What do you have that works? Like it was a lot of stress on that situation. So thankfully, we didn't end up needing them. But we made them nonetheless, and very cool experience.
Yeah, obviously it all builds up to your kind of background as well, with knowledge of how machines work and when you can sort of deploy your skills again in the next emergency. Because I mean, we're still not over. Something else might happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So getting back to assistive technology, you've been doing this for a year and a half. You've built your own stuff, but you look around you and you see what's available. And clearly I can sense there's a feeling that there isn't enough available, or the right kind of things are not available for people with disabilities. What do you think about the industry?
I think like there are two really important things about assistive technology. The first that I referenced earlier, it needs to be really customized, right? And you see this, I mean, you've been doing this longer than I have. You'll have one quadriplegic who can move a little bit of a hand, the next one can't move any. Depending on where you get injured in your neck, 1 inch away could be the difference between moving your shoulders and moving an arm. So it's really customized, which means that if you're a company making the devices, if you make a joystick that works for someone's finger, someone else may need a joystick that works for their chin. So, when it comes to assistive technology, it's not like one solution fits all. It really needs to be customized, which is a challenge. And then the second biggest thing, which is, in my opinion, that the reason the field is so far behind is there's just no profit, or very little. I don't want to, maybe throwing out a number here, but more than 90% of these companies that get into it, I think, aren't very successful, because you make something for diabetes, you got 60 million US customers. You make something for quadriplegics, you have a few thousand. And so even if you got every single one of those to buy your device, you're still not really making a lot of profit unless you charge a ton of money, which most people can't afford. These kind of injuries, spinal cord injuries, people aren't expecting. It's like comes out of nowhere. They don't have insurance, and then even if you have a solution that costs $30,000, it's not realistic for most people. So,
Right.
it's a mix of those two things, that it needs to be really customized, and then you're not having big companies like General Motors or really large companies. They're not going to be interested if there's no money there. And they're a for-profit business. Like, it's totally understandable. But for someone like me, though, this is a huge opportunity. This is like, El Dorado, or like, just open field where there's so much to be done.
But you're not doing it for profit either. So it's all based on your
yeah,
time.
I'm not. What I'd love if this field could find like a philanthropist who's just interested in just, like, let's just change the game. Like I mentioned, it drives me crazy how far behind it is.
But the problem becomes scale, right? Because I hear what you're saying. There's two competing problems here. One is that everything needs to be customized, because each person with a disability is different and unique. And that's unlike people with all their abilities. They're more or less the same. So you could create a shoe that will fit every foot almost. You just got to change the size. So you make different sizes. And so you can mass produce stuff, and then you get the benefit of the economy of scale, so you can make a bigger profit, and that makes your business sustainable. With people with disabilities, every disability is different. So you either have to make something adaptive and that can self-adjust to the person, or you have to calculate within your product some form of customization, which requires a middle person to come in there and size things up. You can't just buy something off the shelf. And that's something
that's kind of the trouble with a lot of these, is like muscle sensors are notorious for this, where like they kind of need to be customized, and you need someone to physically be there and calibrate it a little bit. So like you're mentioning, like even if you make this like one size fits all, it still needs some level of customization and some user to actually implement it. And most of the time, the people in the house are getting paid very little wage. They're just nurses helping out. They don't know anything about electronics, you need to make it also really stupid and easy to use.
So here's a hypothesis or thought experiment for you. If you can make something that is one size fits all somehow, forget about how, do you still think there wouldn't be enough numbers to, in the industry within the US or the greater globe, justify like a?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because when you make a product, you're not going to sell it to every person who has the diabetes example. You're not going to sell it to all 60 million. You're going to sell to a small amount of the market. But then again, to be honest, I don't know. Like certainly this side of the field is not my expertise, and
So in the US, for our viewers who are outside of the US, how does the insurance work? How often are people with quadriplegia supported by either government, Medicare, or insurance?
There is limited support. It certainly won't cover everything you need. It may help you get a nurse to help you out during the day every now and then, but you're not going to get like a wheelchair ramp in your house. For those, there are like nonprofits to help out, and a lot of those kind of organizations. I remember the first quadriplegic I worked with told me the average cost after an injury for the first year is over $1 million. Which is crazy. So like, even if you come into this wealthy and you have insurance, you're still like, it's a game changer.
It's an incredible cost to society at large. All right. So now moving back to your types of things that you build, you obviously focus a lot on the hand. Is that fair to say? What do you think the hand is?
Maybe not the hand in particular. Probably a mix of all different things. I got involved with the hand working with a quadriplegic in California. Really nice girl who, I forget how we meet, probably online. And I asked her, my standard question is, what's a small thing you wish you can do? Like some people say, scratch my nose. Some people will say, click a computer mouse. Hers was that she has function to her hand until her wrist, but she can't grab. So she wanted to pick up a cup of water and pour a cup of water, pick up something off the shelf. And that was really how I got involved in it. Whenever I build stuff, I try not to look at what's available. It just, like, from an inventing standpoint, it kind of sidetracks me and I get fixated on this is the solution. So for months, we just went back and forth. I'd like build a prototype, mail it to her. She'd give me feedback. I'd do another one, over and over. Maybe like 3 months in, she showed me a product she found that's like the perfect solution for her. But it certainly wasn't a waste. Like, you know, I learned a ton, and we ended up creating a lot of cool different ways of grabbing.
Yeah, it's a learning thing for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also you're doing it for free anyway, so you're working together to find new solutions.
And I mean, the hand itself is like super complicated, you know, like the amount of muscles and you know, different actions that you can do is it's a challenging thing.
Yeah. So you made a little gripper that you pull the string and it opens, and then you sent us your 3D print design, and we printed it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So this is your device. You pull this string, and it does this. So the next thing we've got to do is put it on a wrist strap, because that's what you had. And I think you've got 2 designs, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have this
on
a wrist strap like this, and then you have it like that, or maybe under. Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow I'm getting a package. Tomorrow I'm getting a package which is a different kind of wrist strap. It's more like a brace for the wrist. So I'm going to try putting the gripper like on the back of over here on the back of your hand. So a little further up is going to be the next one I try later this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is like the perfect example of like how inventions build on inventions. And I started with a robotic one with 1 motor or 2 motors. It was too heavy. I lowered it to 1 motor that she controlled with her other hand, and it was still heavy. So, you know, I figured let's do it with no motors at all. So we ended up with the mechanical. That's where we're at now. But it will change.
It'll go right. So here's another sort of thought experiment or challenge for you. This is a practical solution, right? Very practical. And okay, it may work. It works for a lot of things. It may not work for some things. Like if I want to pick up this mouse, you know, the contour of the mouse is a bit slippery, and so, you know, nothing works as well as the hand, as you know. But it's really hard to replicate. Have you come across, with your conversations with people with quadriplegia, and certainly we've had these conversations too, have you come across this idea that the aesthetic of an assistive technology is so important, that a lot of people with disabilities don't want to look more disabled, or don't want to draw their attention?
100%. This is something that I made this other grabber that like goes inside your hand, and like it's just a motor. It brings your fingers together. I made that literally because of what we're talking about. Like I was working with the quad. We were talking about how, you know, maybe we can make you a gripper or something, but he doesn't want to show that he has the disability. You know, in his home, he'd be happy to use it. But yeah, it's definitely a concern, which is why, you know, I think like the future of this field may change altogether. But at this point, it's a challenge.
And I think that's an extra complication to what we were saying before. So you've got the problem of customization, you've got the problem of numbers as a market, and then on top of that, aesthetics is so important, and it's going to become increasingly more important as we become more of a wearable friendly world where people are, you know, wearing technology all the time. That needs to look cool.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, when we met, like, you know, way back, I remember we kind of had this conversation about like aesthetics versus functionality, and what's superior, the robot arm or the human hand. And, you know, at the time, I remember talking about how it's kind of my opinion that a robot arm for functionality is better. If you're trying to actually do things like pick up a cup of water or you know, do an action, the robot arm is just, in my opinion, better than someone who has disabled and then you add a certain feature to it. But, you know, it comes at a cost of this aesthetic, you know, problem.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the question is, what is the product here, or what is the need? What's the human need here? Is the human need that somebody who, due to some kind of condition or accident, has lost some of their abilities, is wanting the same things that were being able to be done by their body before to be done for them? Is that what they need? Or is it actually a need for them to recover the feeling that they're in control? and that they can do
Yeah.
that while at the same time not be ostracized or be outside of a community that they see at large. And my
I bet
feeling
if
is
you
the
ask
latter.
10, yeah, I mean, I think if you ask like 10 quadriplegics, you'll get 15 answers for that one. You know, that goes back to the customized and like, you know, they need to be very special. One person I'm sure would love that, and then another quad I'll work with will not want anything bulky at all.
Right.
I mean, that's part of the challenge. That's, you know, that's what makes it exciting and interesting for me.
True. I was thinking about the idea of wheelchairs as an example of something that, I mean, technology, when it's first introduced to a community, it can look, it can stand out. You know, I remember feeling that with mobile phones. When mobile phones first came out, the first time I got myself a mobile phone, I was very self-conscious. It either makes you feel really dorky or, you know, makes you feel cool and so on. You know,
Yeah.
that idea just doesn't occur anymore. Having a mobile phone is like having, you know, being a part of our body. We don't think about it. But it didn't start like that, right? And I think
Absolutely.
going to like
My
wheelchairs.
grandfather's the same. My grandfather's like the same way, where like he will not use a wheelchair no matter what. It's just it's a generational thing. Like he refuses. He can't walk, but you know.
He doesn't want to use a wheelchair. Why? Because he doesn't want to look disabled
I guess he doesn't want to look old, or I don't
or
know.
look older, right? Yeah. But even wheelchairs is an incredible invention, right? Because before there were wheelchairs, people used to carry people around. You know,
Yeah.
That's an ultimate kind of assist, care assist thing that had to change, right? And so the first
Yeah, I guess
wheelchairs were very,
original.
very crude and wooden and all that stuff. And then eventually when the powered wheelchair came back in the late 70s, early 80s, you know, that was a revolution to be able to like
Yeah.
give people who can't even move their own wheelchairs the ability to be independent. Of course, insofar as the world around you is able to cater for that, if you have accessible ramps and places didn't exist back then either, right? So we've come a long way, and I think for us, as you know, the hand is very important, and that's why we've created this group. And I'm waiting for that kind of powered wheelchair moment for the hand. I'm not sure, you know, we're trying to do that, but you know, we may not have the right solution either. But that's I think what would be a great thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are definitely on the forefront. You know, you could probably count on just a few fingers, like how many groups are doing what kind of work you guys are in.
So many, yeah.
I was actually thinking the other night, like 2 nights ago, about I'm sure people are doing this, but it occurred to me you could probably implant like a little simulator over the muscle, like to literally put it under your skin. Very easy procedure. It takes 10, 15 minutes, non-life threatening, no anesthesia needed, just local numbing medicine. And you can probably trigger that to just stimulate a muscle group, like the flexor digitorum profundus, one of the big ones for the hand that makes it close. So I do think that it is possible that I don't know if anyone's doing it now, but it seems very likely to me that that kind of solution is actually doable, where you can do like implants. Have you seen that?
Yeah. So the freehand system that came out of the Case Western University of Cleveland, in Cleveland, that came out in the 90s, 80s, 90s actually. And so what it was it was an implanted chip in your chest underneath, with wires going all the way to your arm and then innervating different muscle groups, exactly as you say, but not being local. So they come from there. And so with a coil on the outside, magnetically energizes it. So when I shrug my shoulder, it sends the energy through, and it can close and open the hand using your own muscles.
Did it work? Where did that group end up?
It worked well. It was an expensive procedure, because it's unlike what you just said, which was just a very local surgery. It was an extensive surgery. Had to go all the way through.
Sounds unnecessary. That was probably before we had like such good wireless technologies, but
maybe, yeah, that's right. The project went for a decade or so. We had 4 implants in Australia. That's how my project got started. My PhD started in that group that was doing these kinds of work in Sydney. And it was a life-changing technology. Didn't work for everyone. There's complications. It's very invasive, obviously. And then the commercialization effort kind of failed of this technology, but now they're reviving it again. So there's groups
great.
coming back to it. I can't remember the name, but can certainly post about it on the group.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, just it seems like, and this goes back to me when I have ideas, I try not to research them, so I try to just build them. But that's awesome to hear that they did that.
But inadvertently, you learn everything anyway, because you every time you have an idea, then you end up finding out what's been done, and then maybe hopefully make an improvement to it.
Yeah, like for that one, the way I was imagining it is wireless. The idea of making a whole surgical, that sounds crazy to me. You definitely don't need to do that.
There's something there, what you just said.
Tiny little chip.
Yeah. It's just one step away from functional electrical stimulation, which is zapping your muscles from the outside of your skin, but that's a bit more sort of like crude in a way. There are obviously projects doing that too.
The advantage of this is you don't need to like really calibrate it once. Like you do your one procedure and then it's always there. You don't need someone to adjust the muscle sensor, put on stickers.
True.
So I don't know where they're at today with it, but I'd imagine that can really be a game changer.
Well, you're a doctor, so maybe you could work towards that.
This is out of my scope, this one, because this means like human trials and research, and I need to write papers to get funding and all that stuff.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Jeff, it's been a pleasure talking to you. What is there anything else that we left? Anything you want to talk about before?
Yeah, we kind of nailed most of it. Maybe the last thing I wanted to just jump on is talk about a big change in the assistive technology field that I think may be coming.
Yeah. What do you think?
So currently, most of the devices I mentioned are kind of outdated. We're using the same stuff like buttons that you'll hit with your head, or it could even be a distance sensor that you get close to, or a joystick or a muscle sensor. These are kind of the things we've been using for 30 years or so.
Yeah.
What I think is really cool is in the past couple of years, there's been a big advancement in facial recognition and eye tracking technology, to the point that not a lot of people are doing it, but you can really control all your electronics with your eyes or with your face without any physical things you need to hit. You don't need to have someone put on a muscle sensor or put on a button near your head.
Yeah.
It would just be totally, like you said, contactless. So I'm working with some people on like creating different phone apps that let you do that kind of stuff, and there's some other groups like Open Sesame. If you guys are looking for a cool app to download, Open Sesame is fantastic. Google 6 months ago put out Look to Speak, which lets you control your phone just by moving your eyes a little bit. But I did want to share that this is a really exciting for like assistive technology wise. Yeah. Totally contactless, being able to control all this stuff like your hand that you guys are making. Potentially be able to control it just by having the person smile or, blink an eye.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really cool field to look at. And then can I go on for another minute?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, awesome. The other thing is we've got to mention Neuralink, which is Elon Musk thing. It's fascinating. So this is a technology where you implant sensors onto the brain. Tiny sensors and like thousands of them, and you can like implant them into small little neuron groups and get signals from it. And potentially the theory is if you can read it, you can write it. And so you can read from here and then send a little simulation and read someone's thoughts or memories. And they're making all these really extraordinary claims about it, cured vision and all this stuff. A lot of it personally I think is hogwash, but one thing they did mention that's super cool is putting this device on top of the area on your spinal cord where you got injured and putting another one below the area where you got injured. So the one on top senses and then the one below will send the signal.
Bridging the gap.
Bridging the gap, exactly. This technology is not available today. They're still doing like animal testing. It's not like ready. But, if you want to think about like 25 years down the line, what could be the future? It wouldn't surprise me if we don't need any of these devices we're talking about today. Even the look to see, the eye gazing stuff, the hand stuff. This could, I think it wouldn't restore your full function for sure, but I think it has the potential to really be a game changer and restore a lot of function or a good amount of function in quadriplegics. So that's a super exciting project to follow, and I hope they succeed.
Definitely. So we have a lot of hope. I mean, we leave this video interview with a lot of hope for the future. There's a lot of smart, intelligent people working on technology that, even if it's not done for people with disability, can actually have a huge impact. Like the smart devices, right? Like smartphones are a game changer for people with disability. I
Yeah.
remember how it was before and how it is now. You know, I think it's made a bigger impact in the life of people with disabilities than people without. So yeah, there's a lot of hope about the future, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks for
Okay,
having me. I really appreciate
no
it.
worries. On that note, thanks again. And if you get a chance, it'd be great if you
Mhm.
could post about your the facial recognition apps that you're
Oh
a
yeah,
fan
sure.
of.
I'll
Maybe you
send
could,
you.
yeah, just post it on the assistive hand group if you could,
Mhm.
for everyone to see, you know, some of the good ones that you're a fan of, like Open Sesame.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Jeff,
Awesome.
and keep in touch.
Likewise. All the best, and hope Eric feels here. Okay.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks. Bye.